Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Venus and today I'm going over all of the books that I read in the month of September. I read 15 books. I finished 3 series. I know, it's shocking. They're not actually fantasy series, but I did still finish 3 series. No 5 stars. Still no 5 stars. We're still hoping to get some more 5 stars before the end of the year. But as always, I like to start from my least favorite to my favorite, also starting with DNFs, because I did have 1 DNF in the month of September. So let's get started. So my DNF was Best Hex Ever, and that is by Nadia El Fassi. This was a new release. I did get an ARC for it, but I just couldn't get into it. It's a romance book. The first paragraph was like perfect fall vibes. It opens up in a cafe during fall. The main character is a witch, and it was very promising when it started. But then I just quickly lost interest. So she is a witch. She owns this cafe. It's called the Serendipity Cafe. It's in London. She's a kitchen witch, so she can like put little spells in the foods that she's making to make people feel like happy or just cozy vibes that she has in the cafe. Perfect, right? Perfect fall vibes. Then we have the male love interest who is a museum curator, and he comes in the very beginning and he's automatically like basically in love with this woman. She's beautiful. He can't stop thinking about her. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Too insta for me. And then we meet the main character. I can't think of her name. The main character's friends. They all know that she's a witch. One of them is getting married. So they are going back to, so I'm pretty sure that her cafe is in London, and they're going back to a small, quaint town, like in the countryside of England. Like perfect vibes. Perfect. I loved it. So we go, her parents live in a little cottage in an English town. Come to find out her best friend is marrying the best friend of the male love interest. So of course they end up meeting by chance on the train. She is also hexed. So she is trying to avoid relationships because terrible things happen to anyone that she ends up dating. And so she's trying to avoid him even though she's instantly attracted to him. And then we get to, it's the wedding weekend. They're all in this cute town in England. And of course, all of a sudden there's a a forced proximity trope with the 2 main characters. And the way that it was set up, I just didn't like it. It was just like, it had the vibes. It had the fall vibes that I was looking for, but the storyline was very cringy. So I just couldn't finish it. So unfortunately, that was a DNF for me. But if those things sound like interesting romance tropes to you, then I definitely would recommend checking it out because the writing wasn't terrible. I just didn't like the direction that was going into. There was also a cool thing with her house that she lives in, that her parents lived in. I guess she grew up in as well. The house kind of, I don't want to say it's not haunted, but it's almost like sentient. It does things when you walk into it. It makes you cozy. It's the house was cool, like that concept. The witchy vibes of this were interesting, but I just found myself not wanting to pick it up. It's on my Kindle, and I never really wanted to pick it up because I couldn't really get into it. So that's my DNF for September. So we're going to start in least favorite. I'm going to be honest, this is the only book that I really didn't like in the month of September. The rest of them are all 3 and above. 3 stars up to 4.5 stars. So this book is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. It's a vampire book. This is my first book that I've read by Rachel Harrison. I've kind of been avoiding her because I had a feeling I wasn't going to really like her style of writing. A lot of her books have like best friend situations, even though they're in spooky settings. And that is what happened with this one. So this one is about 2 best friends, Naomi and Sloane. And I couldn't stand either one of them. Oh gosh. So Naomi, I might be getting them mixed up, but the main character, I think it was Naomi. No, Sloane. Sloane, she is married to an idiot and he cheats on her and she knows it and she stays with him because she apparently likes to be walked all over. And he sets up a weekend for her to spend with her best friend, Naomi, who is a like PR manager for her boyfriend's band. And she's like drugs, sex, rock and roll type character. And he sets up a weekend for them to spend away during her birthday. And of course, we know what he's going to do when she's away. But she goes away with her best friend. They are super irritating together. Naomi is one of the most annoying characters as a best friend that I could possibly imagine. I wanted to throat punch her the entire time I was reading this book. So they're in this, like, I don't know, it's like some cabin. I feel like it was set in the winter, and they're there, and of course they meet so this is a vampire book. They meet vampires because Naomi goes to a bar and ends up having them at like an orgy vampire party. And then things, of course, start happening. I don't know if this is a spoiler. So if you don't want to hear any more after this about this book, then I'm going to put spoiler at the bottom because I do want to talk a little bit about what happens. So spoiler, because I'm going into more detail. So they get turned into vampires. Once they get turned, so the whole scene with how they get turned into vampires was terrible. Don't go into this book expecting like vampire lore or a lot of like background, like fantasy type things about vampires. That's not what this is, but which is fine. I was totally fine with that. But the vampires were lame. Then they get changed into vampires. Naomi is like off the chain doing all kinds of crazy things. She keeps apologizing for shit that she does. And Sloane is always like accepting it. She complains about it, but then she accepts it. And then, oh my God, Sloane is a vampire now and she can't handle it. Like everything is just horrible to her. Like, how can you do that? Oh my God, that's so terrible. Bitch, you're a vampire. Get over it. This is how it is now. I'm sorry. I could not stand this book. I don't know what, oh, I finished it because I got it on audio and it was a very quick audiobook and I was just kind of listening to it during my work day. And the whole time I was complaining about it. So I am sorry to Rachel Harrison fans. I don't think I'm going to pick up any more books by her because I feel like this is just kind of the formula of her books, like friends that are irritating in a spooky setting. And yeah, it's just not for me. So 2.5 stars. The only reason it's not like lower than that is because the very ending was really good. I did like that part. And there was a scene with this old lady vampire that was absolutely hilarious. Other than that, I just couldn't stand the two friends. They were so annoying. So good luck. It's a new release. I hope you enjoy it. Next up, we are actually going into 3.5 star territory. And that first one is going to be Happy Medium by Sarah Adler. This is a paranormal romance that I really overall enjoyed. We are following the main character. She is a medium. She basically is a con artist, as most, to me, mediums are. She has a client list of people that she does her thing for, talks to the dead, and one of them is an older woman who she helps kind of get through a grieving process with her daughter. She does do, good stuff, but she's starting to feel bad about what she's doing because her father was a huge con artist and he got her into this business and he really did con people out of their money, and she's starting to feel guilty about that now. So she's trying to get out of the business. And this older woman that is her client has asked her to go to this man's house because his house is being haunted by a ghost, it's a farm. He's trying to sell the farm, and she wants whatever the main character's name is to go and try to get this ghost off the property so this person can sell the house, the love interest. And of course she's offered a lot of money to do this. So she agrees to do it. She goes to the farm. This guy is like, she's thinking he's going to be older since her client is like in her 60s or 70s. He's not older, he's younger. I think he's like in his early 30s. It's a funny little meet cute because he's like, you're here because so-and-so told you to come and get rid of a ghost. And he sees through her. He knows that she's getting a lot of money from her client. So he's like, no, immediately get off my property. And as she's leaving, she does meet the ghost that is actually haunting this farm. And the ghost is absolutely hilarious. He's like over 100 years old. He goes into the reason why he is haunting the farm and why the male love interest cannot sell it. And he's like, you have to stay behind and force him not to sell this house. So it goes from there. She ends up convincing him to let her stay for a little while to get rid of the ghost. And he only agrees to it because once he proves that she's a con artist, she has to stop taking money from his friend that is her client. So it's fun. I enjoyed it. It's a cute romance. There's some like kind of serious moments in it as well. The ghost, like I said, is absolutely hilarious. I loved him. He's obsessed with watching television. he gets mad when she doesn't turn it on for him to watch. I mean, their relationship is really funny. I kind of didn't like the ending because it was a little sad at the ending, and I was like, no, I didn't want it to go this way, but I do recommend it. I think it's a nice book to read, especially during this time. So 3.5 stars. Next up is the Cinnamon Bun Store, and this one is by Laurie Gilmore. This is the second book in the, I don't remember what town this is, whatever town, Dream Harbor series. The first book is the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which both of these have been all over the place the last 2 years. But this I thought was going to have the fall vibes that I was looking for based on this cover, but it's set more in the end of like August into early September. So if you're looking for like those perfect like October vibes, this is not it. This has a lot of like beach scenes and there's a carnival scene. Just the end of summer vibes, definitely. It's a good transition book, I'll say. It's okay. It's a steamy small town romance. Hazel, main character, she works in a bookstore. She's been working there literally since she graduated high school. She's getting ready to turn 30 and she feels like she hasn't really done anything exciting with her life. She's like very like, you know, like a prude, doesn't really do like exciting things, just loves to be around her books, doesn't really go out much. And then we have a 25-year-old, what is his name? Noah, who is like the small town like playboy who dates a bunch of like tourists that come and then they leave, and he has a bunch of one night stands, but he is actually very much, I don't want to say obsessed, but enamored by Hazel. So she starts getting these clues in her bookstore, like books that are kind of not where they're supposed to be, and they have little notes in them, trying to get her to get out of her comfort zone and do like fun stuff. So she's trying to figure out who of her group of friends are putting these clues in there. And then she shares this with Noah, and he's like, oh, well, I'll help you try to figure out who it is, and then we'll do like the things that it says, because they're little like adventures in the notes. And so they go on this journey during the summer, and of course they get close and there's steamy scenes, and we all know what happens. Happy ever after. It's cute. It's cute. I overall enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. Next up is a middle grade book. This is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Gillian Nobel. This is the first book in a series, and I just gave it 3.5 stars. I doubt that I will continue in the series. I just didn't get engrossed in it the way that I was hoping I would. In this book, we are following Emmy, and she, her mother is like this really famous psychiatrist, like child psychiatrist, and she's getting ready to do like this, I don't know, like this show, like reality show where she's gonna live, I think I'm trying to remember, she's gonna live with these people or give parents like advice on how to deal with their kids. And she's shipping off Emmy to a boarding school in England because her father is from London. So she ends up in this boarding school. Of course, her roommate is a villain. She's just ignorant and she's having a hard time adjusting, making friends. She finally meets these two, can't remember their names, two characters that befriend her. And before she leaves to go to London, she finds a message that was left by her father, who her mom doesn't talk about at all. He disappeared when she was 3 years old. I think she was told that he was dead. And so she doesn't know anything about that side of her family. But when she gets to the school, she discovers that her father knew about a secret society. And it is a fun, cute middle grade book, but there were just parts that were kind of dragged out for me. It didn't have that like excitement and creepiness that I was looking for. It was more of like a mystery. And overall, it was okay. But again, I'm not like jumping to see what happens in the second book. So this is cute if you're looking for a little mystery set in London. There are some creepy vibes in it. There are some creepy vibes in it with the school setting and where they have to go to find these clues and this secret society that is lingering in there. But other than that, it was okay. So 3.5 stars. The next book that I read, well, it's a novella. It's called The First One You Expect by Cesare. I actually read 4 books by this author in September. He's a horror author, author of Corn in the Cornfield, Clown in a Cornfield, which I'll get to a little later. But this book, this novella is 90 pages. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. It is definitely horror. I am really enjoying Adam Cesare's books. I have read I think 5 or 6 of his books now, and I've loved them, really all of them. I just want to keep reading his stuff. Even Clown on the Cornfield, which I'll get to that later because I read those too. But let's talk about this one. So this one is so bizarre. So the main character, he films horror movies. Him and his best friend films these really dark horror movies with the naked girls and the chop chop. They're slasher horror movies. And he is trying to make it big, basically. And he works in a grocery store. He still lives with his parents. I mean, typical, just down and out dude that is trying to make it big. And this girl comes along in the grocery store that he works with. She starts working there, and she's like, "Hey, what do you do?" And he tells her, he's a horror slasher producer or whatever. And so she offers to be in his next movie. She's very pretty. He's like, "Oh, okay." Come to find out, this chick is crazy. And that's all I can say, because it's a very quick 90 page book. She is crazy, and it gets gory really at one point pretty quickly. And the only reason that I didn't score this higher or rate this higher is because it's a short story, or it's novella. So it was just when it was getting good, the ending wrapped up so quickly and I wanted more. So 3.5 for this, but I'm really, really loving Adam Cesare's writing, and I hope he puts out more stuff soon. Next up is Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. This I also gave 3.5 stars. This is a thriller book that started out absolutely incredible. The first chapter was so heart pounding, intense, and I was just oh, this is going to be a 5-star book. I can see it, I can feel it. And then it did not end up that way. So in the beginning of this book, we are following a mother. She's waiting for her son to get home. It's Halloween night. I think it's Halloween night or the night before Halloween, but it's around Halloween. And she's, kind of hanging out, staying up late to wait until her son comes home. She looks out of the window and she sees him stabbing this man. And so her and her husband run outside to find out what is going on. And it spirals from there. Her son gets locked up. Her husband's acting crazy in the police station. This also takes place in England. And it's just crazy. And so she wakes up the next day, and she's a lawyer. So she wakes up the next day expecting to have to figure out, why did her son, her amazing son, do this crazy thing and stab this man? And it becomes like a reverse Groundhog's Day, where when she wakes up, it's the day before. So what she saw hasn't happened yet. And every day that she wakes up is the day before, and then it jumps years. I mean, it goes back, and she's trying to trace what happened to make her son do this. And overall, the concept was really good. I enjoyed it. The issue is that it dragged out, and we didn't get to the juicy twists of it until it just took too long to get to where it needed to get to. I think this author is a great author. I do like her writing style because I read another book by her that I enjoyed. And I just think the execution of this story was dragged out too much. So when you figure out what actually happened and how her son got to do what he did, it was neat. It was definitely a neat twist, and I enjoyed it. It just took too long to get to the ending, I'll say. So almost a 4-star. I actually might round this one up to 4 stars on Goodreads because I did enjoy it, especially now talking about it. You're constantly trying to figure out what is going to happen. Where's the twist at? There's a lot of characters in it that are introduced that somehow play a part in this. So it was neat, the concept of what she did, this reverse Groundhog's Day, I'll say. It just dragged on too long. But other than that, I do recommend it. I do. It's a great, I think, I listened to this on audiobook too. It's a pretty good audiobook, but it just took too long to get to the twist. But yeah, 3.5 stars rounded up to 4. So now the next few books are going to be part of series. So each book is a different rating, but I didn't know how to put this in my list. So the first series that I want to talk about is Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare. I read all 3 of these books. I actually reread the first one because I hadn't read it in a while. Then I read the second one and obviously the third one, which just came out, I want to say a couple weeks ago. So Clown in the Cornfield is a young adult slasher. It is about a girl who moves, I want to say from like Chicago, no, Philadelphia. She moves from Philadelphia to a small town in, oh my God, I can't remember, like Missouri or something, somewhere like in the sticks, with her father, who is a doctor. So he is taking over the previous doctor in this small town's practice because he like just disappeared or left really abruptly. So he's taking over the practice. She's getting acclimated to the kids at the school. And she gets into like this clique, this group that is kind of like seems to be a little rowdy. Like all of the adults in the town have like an agenda against these kids, like they're causing trouble. And something happened to one of the kids. His sister gets, in the very beginning of it, his sister dies. And so they're all just blamed for like these horrible things that happen in this town. And there's this big, like, I don't know, warehouse or factory with the mascot. The mascot is Friendo the clown. And this, I think, like, warehouse used to sell like syrup or something when it was actually open. But she can see this warehouse from her window when she moves into their new home, which is like creepy. I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to see a big ass clown in my window. So she gets into a crazy situation with these kids. They end up at like a rave like party out in the cornfields, and some murders start happening, and they're slashing. And it's a fun time. I gave the first book, I think, 3.5 stars. Then I jumped right into Clown in the Cornfield 2, and it picks up right where the first book left off, maybe about a year later. The main character, obviously, she's still alive, and she is now in college, and she's dealing with the repercussions of everything that happened in this town. There's a couple characters from the first book that are also in this one of which I could not stand, and he really kind of just brought this rating down for me in the second book, so I gave that one 3 stars. Didn't love it as much as the first one. And then we get to the third book, which I loved. I gave that one 4 stars. The main character obviously lives through all 3 of these books, and she she is on a revenge mission in the third book, and it is a good time. Great kills, crazy twist of what happens and ends up with these town people, and a great way to end this series. So I had a great time with Clown in the Cornfield trilogy, and I definitely highly recommend it if you're into like young adult slashers. So 4 stars for Clown in the Cornfield 3. The next series that I finished was I don't know what this series is called. We'll call it the Belladona series, but Belladona, Foxglove, and Wisteria. Wisteria just came out. I literally read them like back to back. So this is, I would say, a romantasy, and I'm not going to hold all of these up. So the first one is Belladonna. This one, if you've been seeing this on everyone's like fall book recommendations, there's a reason. This first book has fall vibes. It's creepy. It's about a girl who has some powers, and she's living in this house with her aunt, who is just an evil, mean woman. And she ends up leaving her aunt's house because something happens, and she's shipped off to, where is she shipped off to? I don't know. Yeah, she's shipped off to the Hawthorns, who live in Thorn Grove, and they're kind of weird. They're a wealthy family. She gets to know the daughter, who is very sick, and the son, who just wants to take over his family's like, I think it's called the Gentleman's Club. I imagined it as like a brothel, but I don't think it's an actual brothel. I think it's just where rich men go to smoke and hang around with women. But the way it was described, it sounded like a brothel to me. But he really wants to take it over, but their father wants to sell it. He doesn't want anything to do with it because their mom passed away. And so he's in like this depression, and he's getting drunk. So Signa is who we're following. She's learning that she's got some weird powers. And in this, she falls in love with Death, the Grim Reaper. And it's good. It's really good. I could not put this book down. There's ghosts and there's spirits in this. It does have like creepy vibes. There's a little teeny tiny bit of steaminess, a little bit. It's very light. But yeah, Signa and Death. So she hates him at first. So we'll go with like enemies to lovers. Then things start to progress, and she's learning things about her family and the Hawthorns and what's going on with her cousin and her sick cousin. I can't remember her name. So then Signa is approached by their mother's ghost, and she wants to try to prove that her mom was poisoned. And so she has to figure out what happened. And it's kind of like almost like a murder mystery. So Signa's trying to figure out what happened to their mother. Secrets are revealed. She ends up getting closer to Death, the Grim Reaper. And it is good. I really like this book. It is a reason why it's been recommended so much. Definitely perfect to read this time of year. And I gave this one, I believe, 4 stars. Or I might have even given it 4.5. But yeah, I love the first book. I'd actually gotten these from the library initially, and after I finished the first book, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna buy them all. Well, sadly, I wish I hadn't done that. So then in Foxglove, a duke ends up being murdered, and Signa has to try to figure out what happened to him. And then Death's brother, Fate, ends up coming into the picture, and he is determined to get the woman that he loved that Death stole from him. So he's got an agenda. And then we also follow Blythe, who is the cousin who was sick in the first book. And that's all I can really say because this is a sequel. This one I overall enjoyed. I did not like it as much as Belladonna. Yeah, so I had to look at my ratings. So I gave Belladonna 4.5 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. It was still really good, just not as good as Belladonna. And then we have Wisteria, which I gave 3 stars. I did not like this nearly as much as the first 2 books. And it's because I can't really say much about it, but we're following 2 different characters compared to the first 2 books, which I didn't like at all. And it's like an enemies to lovers overdone situation. I'll say that. And yeah, I couldn't wait for this book to be over. I kind of didn't like this one at all, to be fair. Probably more like a 2.5 star, but I'll round it up to 3. Yeah, I did not like this one. This is like my least favorite. I hated the way the series went in this direction, mostly because I didn't like the characters in this book. Yeah, that's really all I can say because it's the last book in a trilogy, but I'm sad to say I did not like the way it ended. And then the next series that I finished was the Wayward Pines series by Blake Crouch. I had finished the first book in the series maybe last year. So it's a sci-fi like thriller book about a Secret Service agent who comes to Wayward Pines to try to find 2 of his coworkers that were assigned to figure out what was going on in Wayward Pines, and then they never came back. So in the first book, you're following him, and he is in this creepy town. Everything looks very like staged. No one will let him get out. When he tries to leave, there's like no road out of the town. So you're trying to figure out all of what is going on in this weird ass town. The sheriff's crazy. He can't get in touch with any of the people that he used to work with, like his boss that sent him there. He can't get in touch with his wife. That's kind of the main plot of the first book, him trying to figure out what Wayward Pines is. And the way that it ended, when you figure out what it is and why it's so weird, it's like so good. Such a good cliffhanger. Don't know why I didn't pick up the second one immediately because I have series issue commitment issues, I guess. But finally decided to pick up the second book, which is Wayward, and I gave it 4.5 stars. It was incredible. I loved where it picked up at. I cannot say anything about the plot of this book because it'll ruin the cliffhanger for the second one, but it was so good, so intense, so many things happening. Loved it. 4.5 stars, like I said. Then we get to the last book, which is The Last Town. And I didn't like it as much at all as the first 2 books. This one I gave 3 stars. This one I can't say anything about either, sorry, but I'll say there's a love triangle in this that really dragged out pretty much the entire book. These are short books. They're under like 300 pages. And I really was so disappointed with the third book. But it wrapped up nicely, when you figure out what all is happening in this town and with these people. I just hated that it concentrated so much on the love triangle. I hated that. I hated it. Yeah. So overall, it's a great series. I definitely recommend it. Just sadly did not like the landing of the third book in this series. And then my favorite book of September was Small Town Horror by Ronald Malfi. This is like a mystery horror book with some like ghosty elements to it, and it was done so well. I also love that this took place on the Eastern Shore in Maryland. So a lot of the places that the author mentioned, I was familiar with. So that was really cool. But we are following Andrew, and he is living in New York with his wife, his pregnant wife. And you immediately, when it starts, he like has like these horrible premonitions that something's going to happen to his wife or his newborn baby. And then I think he's a lawyer too. Yeah, he's a lawyer. And he is called by one of his childhood friends in Maryland that he needs to come back home immediately. Like they need him immediately. So when he gets back home, we realize that there's a group of friends. He and a group of his friends, when they were younger, did something horrible that is somehow coming back to haunt them. So you meet all of his friends from back then. One of them now is in some trouble. His wife has gone missing. So that's why he called Andrew to come back and try to figure out what happened to his wife. But in the meantime, there's other things happening that you're getting flashbacks of what they did when they were younger. And the way that the author did the flashbacks and then coming back into present time and everything is kind of merging. It has like these creepy like vibes to it. And you don't know, like, is this really a ghost story or not? Like, and then what the heck did they do when they were younger? So we get to like the 300-page mark, and something is said by one of the characters, and then you're like, oh my God. Like this light bulb goes off, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like the way that it was revealed. Now I would have never guessed it. And usually, I mean, I like have theories when I'm trying to read like horror and thriller books that have like a mystery to it. I didn't see it coming at all. I was like, what? I remember like, when you kind of sit up and you're like, what? So that was really good. So I loved this author's writing. I really, really enjoyed it. And I have like 2 of his other books now on my TBR, and I can't really say much more about it. But it was so good. The vibes, the atmosphere of it, the way these friends interacted, how you get the flashbacks of what happened when they were younger. It just was a great time. It was a great time. I highly recommend this book. But I will say the only reason I didn't give Small Town Horror 5 stars is because I just wanted a little bit more of the ending. I feel like things wrapped up so quickly. So it wasn't a perfect read, but it was still very, very good. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of September. It was actually my second highest reading book number quantity wise for this year. It was a great, great reading month. Still looking for a 5-star. I feel like this happened last year around this time where I was not getting any 5-star reads. So I'm hoping that turns around very quickly. As always, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Please let me know what your favorite book of September was. And I love recommendations. So let me know if you have any recommendations for me. Thank you. I will see you again soon. See ya.